Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is multiple award-winning journalist Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr.
Waiting for that introduction this morning.
Femi Femo.
That's me.
Okoma man.
That's true too.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
friend.
friend. And to Dr.
And
Okpe. And Okpe.
Thank
Fantastic.
Thank
I'm about to give them the formal announcement of their award. Legendary reporter and Dr. Bati's adjectives, include cerebral, sagacious, political analyst.
Yes.
Only at Arise News. So congratulations. You were so proud of
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Bati. Let me tell you about what is happening around the world. Now, in the aftermath of the recently concluded COP29 summit in Azerbaijan, the world's richest countries have been accused of being stingy after agreeing to inject $300 billion annually to developing countries who need the cash to wean themselves off of the coal, oil, and gas that causes the globe to overheat and adapt to future warming and pay for the damage caused by the climate change's extreme weather. Now, it's not near the full amount of $1.3 trillion that developing countries were asking for, but it is 3 times the deal of the $100 billion a year from 2009 that is expiring. Still, Nigeria's Nkuruka Madueke, who is the CEO of the National Council on Climate Change, is among a list of global representatives who have called the deal an insult and a joke. To the United States now, and President-elect Donald Trump has completed his cabinet roster with the nomination of longtime ally Brooke Rollins for Secretary of Agriculture. She's the co-founder and president of the America First Policy Institute, which is a pro-Trump right-wing think tank, and she's also a former White House aide during the president-elect's first administration. She served as director of the Office of American Innovation and acting director of the Domestic Policy Council. Having grown up on a farm, Rollins was involved in early with the Future Farmers of America Institute, as well as other like organizations. Her nomination marks the end of Trump's picks for his cabinet, a group of 15 advisors who we can see on the screen, who each helm a bureaucratic department within the American government. Each nominee will have to be confirmed by Senate, and I, for one, am looking forward to that. And lastly, the United Kingdom has imposed sanctions on 3 people, including Africa's former richest woman, as the Labour government raises up its efforts to clamp down on those who enable money laundering through Britain's financial system. The measures hit Isabel dos Santos, who is the daughter of Angola's former president, as well as Dimitro Firtash, who is an exiled Ukrainian oligarch who is accused of embezzling money from the country's gas supplies, as well as Aviaz and Lembergs, one of Latvia's richest men, who was jailed last year for bribery by a court in Riga. Now, most Africans do know who Isabel dos Santos is. Her father, Jose Eduardo dos Santos, served as Angola's president for 38 years until 2017. She is Africa's first female billionaire and has faced corruption allegations in Angola and elsewhere for years. Britain says dos Santos abused her position at Angola's state oil firm Sonangol and telecoms company Unitel to embezzle at least $440 million. Dos Santos does deny the allegations and says she will appeal this decision, as she was not given an opportunity to present evidence and defend herself.
So, Femi,
Yes.
if we, right here, Africa developing nations, are delusional in our thinking to think that the Western nation that emits more in all these gases that heat up the atmosphere will give us money to fix the climate change problem, we are foolish. The joke is on us. I knew that was going to happen, and that's why, to a large extent, I always think these COP things are charades. Because it's just like 2 people in a room, the developed nations and the other developed nations. The ones that cause the problem will tell you that, okay, I'll give you a small handout to fix the problem that is affecting the lives of people based on the problem you caused.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. That was what happened in the last COP. That's what happened in this COP. Even the $300 billion, most of that monies will not be delivered by those Western nations. They now bopped up the figure to about 1.2 trillion and say, okay, the rest will be in loans. About 300 billion will be in grants. So we have politicized officially the climate change conversation while the globe keeps heating up, while we keep actually seeing climate change, while we keep seeing environmental disaster everywhere. But they don't care. And guess what? Trump is coming in now. He wants to ramp up production, which is going to push out more fossil fuel in the world. So all of this narrative and this conversation we're talking about, they are not ready. And that's why I keep calling on African leaders to develop our own continent from within. We have the natural resource. We have the resource to be able to raise capital and be able to compete effectively. But what takes it away? Corruption, nepotism, and other shenanigans. Example of the corruption, look at how much Dos Santos' daughter became so rich just because her father was a sit-tight leader in Angola for so many years. And also look at the hypocrisy of Britain. Now they are fishing out. What about other billionaires out there that ship their money into flats in Chelsea that are locked up there? Britain's still correct.
To say no more. That time.
It's a lie.
They're not going to do any
you know, the hypocrisy of Britain means they'll show their face a little bit. They'll pick some people, gerrymander of some sort. What about so much Chinese money, Russian oligarchy money? Wasn't the money sitting there? Wasn't it that money that bought Chelsea Football Club? Until a war came, that was when they remembered, though, Abramovich money was Russian oligarchy.
Britain is saying that this is only the beginning. This is part of Labour's promise. That's during the elections in July on the crackdown on dirty money, and the 3 identified individuals, including Isabel Dos Santos, are part of their measures towards keeping that promise and ensuring that they crack down. Of course, what then happens is what happens with the frozen assets, the money that's recovered. You know, sometimes there are issues around repatriation of funds to the host countries.
Yeah. I know one place that there's a lot of dirty money.
Where is it?
It's in Buckingham Palace. All the money they stole and looted, they should start by return that money for Buckingham Palace.
That's dirty money now. This is a charge to Keir Starmer. You know,
they should repatriate those funds. That's dirty money.
But I do think it's very welcome news. Isabel Dos Santos has said she wasn't given fair hearing and that she's going to appeal this. I don't know how she's going to appeal this because it's not just Britain. In the United States, Interpol at different points have called for her arrest. She's living lavish in Dubai, with her family, spending a lot of money and denying these claims, even though to a very large extent it's very obvious. Maybe if she would like to demonstrate or prove how she was able to make her money legitimately without robbing the people of Angola, who's, you know, of course also have enjoyed oil wealth over the years, but of course has been siphoned and stolen by leaders. But let me leave her alone and go to COP29. And I say this because I slightly disagree with Rufai's position that it's delusional for the global south to expect the global north as rich and wealthier countries who are responsible for where we are because they are the biggest emitters of gas not to take responsibility. Because the unfortunate thing is that, for instance, Africa as a continent contributes only about 3% to gas emissions. If you compare that to China, America, and other parts of the world, it's unfair for them to have put the world in such a mess and not take responsibility and the moral responsibility of providing finance, especially because they can afford it. And a lot of these people who are suffering in terms of the nations on the global south, that's African nations, poorer nations, cannot afford to push back the effects of climate change over the years. And that's why I feel that a lot of people are justified in a statement to say that $300 billion is a joke.
It is.
And that we must continue to call them to attention, that they need to take responsibility for their actions. It's unfortunate because now Donald Trump is president-elect. The last time I was here, he wasn't.
You see what happens when you're not at work?
So he's now president-elect and he's a climate denier. I don't know what's the impact of that on climate financing. So I agree with Rufai that money may not even be realized. The $300 billion they've committed, because a lot of things are going to change in the next few years, and it's really sad to see that happen.
Dr. Bati.
Okay. The Baku climate action, climate change, climate adaptation was to focus on finance, what they call the Baku finance deal. Now, the developing countries, or rather the underdeveloped countries of the global south, were asking for 1 trillion naira annually for the next decade, considering the seriousness. Did I say naira? $1 trillion. Now, the reason is because of the enormity of the climate change crisis that the world faces at the moment. Countries of the Pacific Islands face, in fact, existential issues. Some of those countries, some of those islands are about to disappear. And now some of those countries, including, by the way, Afghanistan, whose Taliban leaders attended the conference that was attended by over 50,000 participants from over 200 countries. They are also saying they are threatened. With the Paris Agreement that global warming should be kept at 1.5 degrees centigrade.
Yes.
Now, the World Meteorological Organization says that this has been the worst year in terms of climate change. So the urgency of the matter is serious. But what did they get at the end of the day? The conference was to have ended on Friday. It extended to yesterday morning. Yes. At the end of the day, the Global South got a promise of $300 billion till, annually till 2035. Yeah. And that's why the lead of the Indian team was saying this is unacceptable. This was why, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres himself said, no, this is not good enough.
Right.
Nigeria says, no, this is actually ridiculous. And that's where we are. But two things to note. One, yes, I agree with the hypocrisy of the international community. Right. They've remained hypocritical from COP27 to COP29. They pay lip service. They don't follow through. Number two is the fact that the major world leaders were not there. The two major global emitters, carbon dioxide emitters, yes. China and the US, they were not there. Okay. Now, out of the G7 countries, the G7 industrialized countries, only Kestema attended. Japan was not there. Canada was not there. Olaf Scholz of Germany was not there. They just very conveniently boycotted. So the next question is, even this controversial deal that was agreed upon, will it be fulfilled? Will it be sustained?
Sure.
And then the other issue is the Trump factor. In his first term, Trump said he pulled out the United States. This time around, he's going to do the same thing. That is it. And as for talking about Trump, you say he has completed his appointments, 15 advisors. 15. Well, these are persons, MAGA people, and then people who are loyal to him, but they've been very controversial. Gates has to withdraw because of sexual issues. Yes. Peter Hegseth has issues. One wrestler is the one that is in charge of education. Robert Kennedy is the one that is in charge of health and human services.
Another high libido. Sean Duffy in terms of transportation.
So, all of these controversial persons, they will still have to go through Senate confirmation.
Exactly.
As you said. But Trumpism is triumphing.
It's there, isn't it?
All right. And real quickly, I know there's no time. Let me just point out one hypocrisy for the Trump camp.
Go ahead.
Real quickly. Shebide said, Democrats are all about LGBT. I'm a very traditional African value person. Mm-hmm. But hope they know that Mr. Bassett, if approved, will be the first openly gay Secretary of the Treasury.
Yes.
And this is Trump Pico. Because they were the ones abusing the Democrats about gay rights, homosexuality, and all of that. So maybe they should go after Bassett when they go. But they can't go because he gave Trump.
You mean Scott Bassett?
Scott Bassett. Anyway, he gave Trump
for treasury.
He gave Trump $1 million during the campaign.
Well,
so we are waiting.
We'll see. We will. I am very much looking forward to these Senate hearings. Moving on to our newspaper headlines now, and we begin in Nigeria with This Day. This Day leads with news that oil marketers have struck a deal with the $20 billion Dangote refinery for the supply of at least 28 million litres of petrol daily in the next 6 months for domestic consumption. The development came amid an announcement that the refinery had cut its ex-depot petrol price from 990 naira per litre to 970 naira per litre, saying it is its own way of thanking Nigerians for their support. In addition to the New Telegraph's report on Bishop Kuka's comments stating that President Tinubu and former Presidents Muhammadu Buhari and Goodluck Jonathan were accidental leaders, the paper also features a report on Nigeria's status rising actually on anti-money laundering ratings. Financial Action Task Force had in 2023 grey-listed Nigeria due to a rise in capital inflows and deficiencies in combating money laundering, terrorism and arms firing. However, in a statement on Sunday, the NFU said that Nigeria has been compliant now, or largely compliant in 37 out of the 40 recommendations. So well done to Nigeria. Staying with the comments from the Bishop Kuka, on the front cover of this morning's Daily Sun, as well as The Guardian, he talks about how nepotism is responsible for Nigeria's woes and says the current state of democracy is not working. The Daily Independent leads with experts in the financial and aviation sectors who have asked the federal government to implement the existing laws on transactions of businesses in local currency, the Naira. They say the failure of the government to carry out proper executions of the laws was causing gaps in the system, boosting the dollarization of the Nigerian economy, while foreign companies, especially airlines, continue to violate Nigerian law, which prohibits sales of air tickets in foreign currencies. The Daily Trust leads this morning with the presidency lobbying the National Assembly over tax reform bills. Daniel Bwala also says that the proposed laws are meant for good governance. Separately, Mr. Bwala, the newly appointed special advisor to the president on policy communication, says that he's been facing an overwhelming conspiracy from television anchors and even guests against his appointment. I have no idea why. Moving on to The Punch. The Punch reports on the prospects of members of the House of Representatives potentially clashing over President Tinubu's 1.7 trillion naira loan. If approved, the president said the loan would fund the 9.7 trillion naira deficit in the 2024 budget. The Senate has already approved the loan request, with the House expected to debate the same ahead of its approval later on this week. Justice is on trial in Kenya now. The front page of the Daily Nation discloses the details behind 10 judges at risk of losing their jobs over a 3 billion shilling feud. Rigathi Gachagua is also featured saying Ruto is being he's being insincere with his connections with the Adani Group, and is calling on Donald Trump to slap sanctions on complicit Kenyan leaders. I wonder if he'd say that if he still had his job. And to the Daily Graphic of Ghana, where the country is gearing up for its presidential elections on the 7th of December, the paper is looking at the unpredictability of Ghana's central region. And in the United Kingdom, assisted dying is being featured on several dailies. The Daily Express also looks at the temperature of the nation on this topic ahead of a historic vote in the Commons on Friday. Those are your newspapers from around the world.
Well, thank you very much, Adefemi. Fortunately, we cannot delve deep, but interesting headlines. Hopefully, we'll have time to talk about in the course of today or maybe tomorrow.